Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I'm Bill Knight. By the way, happy National Jerky Day.
Oh, I've been. Thank you. I was hoping
you. It's not a day dedicated to us.
I was
dedicated to beef jerky. But,
I was hoping you'd bring that up. National Jerky Day.
Jerky, yeah.
One of the original treats when you think about it. You know, early on, I mean, they didn't have candy bars and stuff like that back in the 1800s, but they had jerky. They used to make their own jerky, these farmers. You didn't know that, right? I mean, you want to get into a topic discussion about jerky? I can do it. I can talk jerky with the best of them.
Hey. I have one of those, dehydrators. I can make my own jerky.
Can you really? You really can? You're a jerky aficionado.
I haven't used it in years, but yeah, I used to go to the butcher, and sit there and go, I want that right there. I want it shaved this thick and, sliced. That way all you had to do is take it home, marinate it.
The problem you have when you get older, when you eat jerky, you can pull out your dentures. So it's not a good thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Hey, big day today. Yeah, I woke up this morning and thought, well, at least he's going to get a fair deal down there in Miami. But then I read, well, not really, Jim. That's not really the case. It ain't going to be all that fair. Apparently, he has. They talked about. Was it Aileen Cannon being the judge? She's the
Jonathan
judge.
Goodman now. He's a magistrate.
She's the judge of record, whatever that means. I guess, on all the legal documents, her name will be. But she's not going to be, there today. It's Jonathan Goodman.
Jonathan Goodman. He's a magistrate. He's a Democrat. He was appointed during the Obama administration, so you know where his convictions lie. But
yeah.
A magistrate in a federal trial.
Now, you notice that the uproar, they were all upset on the left that Aileen Cannon was going to be the judge because she was a Trump appointee. And, of course, it couldn't be fair if a Trump appointee was the judge of record, right? So, But now, all of a sudden, that issue has been put to rest because it's a Obama appointee who's going to be sitting on the bench today. That's okay. It's okay if it's their side, but it's not okay if it's somebody from our side.
Well, that's true. And a magistrate judge, he's got no power to do anything. He can't accept a motion for injunctive relief, for judgment on the pleadings, for summary judgment to dismiss or quash an indictment or information made by the defendant. He can't suppress evidence in a criminal case. He can't dismiss or permit maintenance of a class action. So, he can't do anything but just push this thing
in
forward.
Pennsylvania, they don't even have to be lawyers. They can be just a business person who runs for magistrate.
This guy was a talk show host. He was a radio guy. And he I'm going to get my law degree to be a judge. And that's what he did.
Really?
Now, yeah, and just so you know how being a magistrate works, let's say that a district magistrate judgeship opens. You can run for it. It's you get voted in.
Right.
I know a couple around here. They're friends of mine.
Sure.
Well, where'd you go to law? Oh, no, I didn't. No, I just ran for the office. I said, well,
that's Pennsylvania.
Where did you get your knowledge from? Yeah, Pennsylvania does that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they send you to school for about 10 days where you learn the procedures and proceedings. And I'm going, so you got 10 days of education, and now you can rule over.
But
yes,
Bill,
I can.
I got to tell you something. As my friend would say, let's back this bus up. You know who says that? Not too long ago. I'm talking like 70 years ago. You could graduate from high school in most states, and then you could go and apprentice in a law office for 5 years, and then you could be a lawyer. No college, no law school. I'm talking back in the 20s and maybe in the early teens of the 20th century. And before that, let's go back to the time of Abraham Lincoln. He didn't even have to graduate from high school. He could just apprentice in a law school, in a law office, and become a lawyer.
Yeah, I think the only state now that has very loosey-goosey, I think it's Wisconsin, or it's up in that area. There's one of the states, 1 year, that's all it takes.
Really?
You got one, you just take one.
One
year,
and done, as they would say, huh?
One and done, and you're in, and you are a lawyer, and you can be. California used to be a 2-year thing because I had a friend that did that. It was in radio, ironically, but that was back, when I was in diapers in the broadcast business. He got his degree. It's changed, but there's a lot of careers that are that way still today, where you don't have to go and have any formal training. You can be a pharmacist and not go to a pharmacist actually knows as much as a doctor and then more. But you can dance around that. And I know this because when I got out of radio because of kids in school and yada, 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 I ended up working at a Walgreens. And they have what they call Walgreens University. It's on a computer. And, as a manager, you learn different things, but you got to learn the pharmacy to be the manager of the store because you have the pharmacy. So you do that, and then they have a program in that computer system where you can sit there, and when they sign off on it, you can pretty much be the acting pharmacist as long as you have a real pharmacist. But
reminds me of the old days in television, Bill. Every station wanted a meteorologist, but there weren't enough to go around, so they came up with this symbol. A meteorology symbol, and it literally was like, you could take a disc jockey off the street and he could study for an afternoon, and then he would get that symbol when he was on television doing the weather.
All he had to do is do a couple of forecasts, and then they look over the tape and go, yep, he's got it down.
He's got it.
And then he was a certified meteorologist.
That's right.
Well, the same thing happens to what I'm talking about. You can challenge the board of the pharmaceutical board saying, well, I've done this. I've done it through this drugstore. And they go, all right, okay, you're in. And now you can be a legit pharmacist.
Anyway, today, Trump is going to be down in Miami at 3 o'clock. There's going to be a lot of people down there, folks. A lot of people. I mean, I really think it's going to be
chaos.
A chaos. And I think that it's going to be planned chaos on the part of the left. You'll see probably people wearing MAGA hats. Maybe some of them will be doing things that seem unlawful, and I don't think they'll really be MAGA people. I think there'll be people wearing MAGA hats who are who are maybe Antifa and things like that. I would, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I mean, there should be people there to support President Trump. But on the other hand, I do think that there's going to be a problem because there's also going to be troublemakers there, and this administration is going to encourage it. That's my humble opinion. Yesterday, an aggressive reporter from CNN, they hire all their reporters at CNN, and one of the prerequisites is they ask a question. It's usually a question on a left field, and if they don't get the answer they want from whoever they're interviewing, they will interrupt them and be rude. They do it all the time. And yesterday, Kevin McCarthy was being interviewed in the halls of Congress by a CNN reporter about the indictment. And here's how this went.
This is not playing out here. And so that's a real concern to all Americans. So as a policymaker, elected officials, we want to make sure it's equal justice for all. And we want to look at it as a weaponization. Now, you're with CNN, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this even further, because when somebody weaponizes government and they actually get removed from government, let's take Andrew McCabe, okay? Former deputy.
But this is a different
let
case.
me answer the question.
This is a different set of circumstances, right? I mean, the former president is accused of misleading law enforcement, of a conspiracy of obstructing justice. That's a different set of facts. Are you prepared to defend him as the former president, and what other actions will the House take in the House Judiciary Committee in terms of funding?
Are you prepared to defend your network, CNN? I'm answering your question. You could ask me any question you want, but I'm entitled to answer the question, okay? You can't put words in my mouth. Even though your network can hire Andrew McCabe, who was fired from the FBI for leaking classified documents. Did you remove him from your network? No, you continue to put him on to give judgment against President Trump.
Speaker.
You also hire Clapper. Clapper has come out publicly.
Mr. Speaker,
and
what steps is the House going to take in terms of Is there any effort to defund the FBI? Any effort to defund the Department of Justice after what you've seen over the last several days?
So your network hires Clapper, who literally lied to the American public, one of 51 other individuals that had briefings and used it politically to tell the American public that a laptop was Russia collusion, even though it had all this information about the Biden administration. Are you prepared to get rid of those people from your network? Because my concern as a policymaker is that when you weaponize government and now you're weaponizing networks, that is wrong. So we will take all of our power to make sure that the legal system in America gets the blinders back on and people are treated fairly. I have a real problem that your network actually pays people who did classified information and then lied to the American public to try to influence a presidential election, and then you put them on your network to give an opinion about a president, and I'm answering your
but you're not answering
very clearly, because what your network has done has weaponized at the same time. I think equal justice is important.
If you see a picture, she's an attractive young girl. She must be young woman. Please, I'm not trying to be, condescending, but she's an attractive young person. She is probably around 26, 27. Somebody in the newsroom has told her, okay, here's how you handle every interview. We want you to be in charge. You run the interview. Whoever you're talking to, we don't care. If they go off the beaten path, it's your job to get them back on the path, our path. And so she tried at one point to even change the topic. Kevin McCarthy, God bless him. I don't usually say this, but he was right on the money with this interview.
No, he was on the money, but sometimes when you engage with these interviewers, you're still in a trap, because you might be doing exactly what he did, but they are looking for any soundbite misstep in language. And you could be saying the right thing, but it's a misstep in language. They can take that one clip and then go back and revoice.
Yeah.
Well, here's what we asked, and this is what we got.
That's true. Oh, they do that all the time in the TV business. It's a sound bite, literally.
And that's why it's called a bite, because that's what it is. It's not the absolute whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
It is what I'm going to take and manipulate it to be, and that's what they want.
For example, if you said, do you support President Trump, I might say in an answer, look, I know President Trump has his problems. He can be very aggressive. He can be very difficult, and not the kind of person you may want to vote for. But he's my guy. Now, that's my answer, right?
They wouldn't have my guy.
No.
They would say he's not the kind of person you want to vote for.
That's exactly right.
So what you have to do, you have to boil it all down, and say, I support Trump.
That's exactly what you should do. Your answer should be, if you're smart going into an interview, you should realize they're going to slice it and dice it, so don't give them anything to cut.
Well, that's what – see, now there's something that I'm sure the Democrats are doing it, but the Republicans are doing it. Hell, I'd teach the class if you had to. And they need to be taught how to handle reporters and interviews, and keep it on page, and don't let them get under your skin, because once they do that, they got you. And then, you've got to go and backpedal what they put out there to get it back to what you said. And when you backpedal, you're a liar.
Yeah. Hey, yesterday, Howie Carr, he's a big talk show host up in Boston. He's popular around the country. People listen to him all over the place. His main hub, so to speak, is Boston, and then the surrounding states, the New England states. He's heard live in Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont.
Does he even live up there anymore? I thought he was like down in Jersey.
Up in half the year, he's down in Florida.
There it is. Yeah.
He's in Florida. As a matter of fact, he's not too far from the Newsmax base studios. I guess Newsmax has their headquarters in Florida, and I guess Howie does some work for Newsmax. But he was, let's see if I can find a cut here. He had Donald Trump on, and they were talking about what'll happen when you're president. And Trump said something interesting about the Pandora's box has been opened by Biden and his administration. Listen.
I want to read you something you wrote today on Truth Social. I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of the USA, Joe Biden, and the entire Biden crime family, and then on from there. But I mean, would you really appoint someone, or where does this all end?
Well, they've opened up the box. Look, Bill Barr is a weak coward, and he didn't want to do anything on this. And yet, in many ways, a lot of people, sort of, including me, I said, I get it, because you don't want to go after sitting presidents and vice presidents and all of the things. So I sort of got it. Not necessarily a believer, but now they've opened up the Pandora's box. And now we're in a position where we can say, and look at the corruption in the Biden family, the millions and millions of dollars pouring in from China and other places. It's a disgrace. From Burisma, you take a look at the money coming in from Ukraine. So much money, and nobody does anything about that. Well, we're gonna get to it, and now we can do it now, because now the box has been opened. It's the Pandora's box that has been opened, and it's been wide open. So I'm allowed to do that. People will say, "Now we get it."
The interesting thing there, you talked about William Barr. Now, when he was president, and let's talk about this a little bit and what this trial is really about, because he has evidence that William Barr had intimate knowledge of Biden and the $5 million bribe with Burisma. As a matter of fact, I think there's a story about it in Gateway Pundit today. But that has been a known fact, and now it's out there. But really, when you look at these indictments, also I want to say, how he said we're going after the most corrupt president in time. I've said it time and time again. I'll say it again right now. Everything that the Democrats are guilty of and do, they accuse you of. They say Trump is the most guilty of. He's the most crime-ridden
Espionage Act. Who's done more espionage than Biden?
Nothing in these indictments have Trump on espionage, because if he was engaged in that in these documents, which were his to begin with,
right?
He can declassify anytime, any place, anywhere, and he did. All right, so it doesn't matter if he used the documents as toilet paper. They were technically his to do whatever he wants with. But here he is. He's being indicted for this stuff. There is nothing there that is of any espionage or consequential act that way. It is a nothing case, but they're going to lie and make something out of it and hold him accountable for this. And I'm like going, what?
Yeah.
Now, Biden, they've got stuff on, but they're going after this guy with a big bag of nothing, and they're going to try to do their best. I had another thought here, but
let me
move on.
Take a moment. This is interesting. The big item here is that Trump took classified documents that he shouldn't have. He had no right taking. Okay, that's what they're saying. They found them in his house, and he had no business doing that. Well, let's talk for a second about classified documents. The head of an organization called National Security Council is a guy named Kel McClanahan. And Kel McClanahan talked about classified documents. He said a sitting U.S. president has wide-ranging authority to classify and declassify certain documents, but former presidents do not have that authority over classifications and declassifications. We know that, right? Well, when President Trump did this, he was the president. Current presidents can classify documents as long as they can, quote, make a plausible argument that it is related to national security. On the other hand, the president doesn't have to give any reason to declassify anything. He can just do it summarily.
That's right. Now,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say classified documents, all right, and Treason Act. Name one thing where his action has hurt the country.
Well, there's no victim here.
So there's no victim, there's no crime.
That's right.
And he had the legal right to do what he did, and those documents were his. So what's all the gripe about?
Well, I'll tell you who didn't have the right to do anything was the FBI and the Justice
that's true.
Department.
They overstepped their bounds. But I'll tell you what might have been in those documents. Those documents, because let's go back to Russiagate, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was all made up and phony. Now, we know that obviously this was something that was made up. Hillary took it, ran with it. Obama had it and signed off on it. Mm-hmm. They all knew about it. So Hillary's hands are dirty. Obama's hands are dirty. Biden's hands are dirty. All right? And what if what the documents were the evidence of that crime?
A lot of people believe that's the case. A lot of people believe that what they were looking for was the stuff that incriminates Obama and Hillary. And because Trump was the president at the time, he had the right to take it from the White House and bring it to his place.
But a lot of voting people are actually, whether you want to think it or not, part of the deep state because they have been programmed with so much hate. All you've got to do is go to social media and you look at some of your lefty friends and the memes they're doing. They really don't care about hearing the truth. It is about, and this is what this is about with the deep state, one party, and they don't realize they have gotten in bed with the devil. It is a fight between good and evil.
It is.
And you've just given up your soul if you don't step back and get out of that bed.
Well, what I do, seriously, Bill, I just look at, you got to be able to look away from those people. Some of those people, by the way, are not real people. They're bots and they're generated memes and things like that. They're not real people. But the ones that you do know that are making nasty comments, you got to just say, hey, I feel sorry for you, pal. You haven't been paying friggin' attention. You haven't been doing your homework. Do you think that we just woke up one day and we felt the way we feel? Some of us actually sat down and started to pay attention. And when you pay attention, you can't help but come to this conclusion. Even if you don't like Trump, that's okay. But it isn't about Trump. It's about our country. We have right now, Bill said it, he said it 2 minutes ago. This is a battle between good and evil, pure and simple. Right now, the guy who's on the side of the good, whether you like it or not, is Trump. And the evil is the guy who's in the White House right now.
Have you ever bought a car or a house and you were paired with a salesperson? You might not have liked him at all, but they gave you a damn good deal.
Yes.
They took care of you because by taking care of you, well, they got your business and you both came out on top.
Yep.
All right. Now, I keep hearing what a great job Joe Biden is doing, man. Everything is going for the better. When in reality, we added 300,000 new jobs. Okay, those were 300,000 jobs that were lost to the fast food industry and the big tech jobs. Yeah, there's some out there. There's some mega jobs out there, but not like there used to be. There are a lot of people that have gone down in stature.
Guys were engineers. People were engineers and had good jobs, and all of a sudden they're working, like you say, in a store, or they're doing something they would never have been doing just a couple of years ago.
There are examples of this time and time again, not just from politics, but just from the reality of life. I look at the Chemical Valley in West Virginia. Used to be a thriving area in the seat of West Virginia, the state capital, Charleston. They had DuPont,
Monsanto, these big companies,
Monsanto, all of them. But then that thing happened in Bhopal, and that's the other. Yeah. They only made it in two places, Bhopal and there in West Virginia. And when all those people got killed, well, that changed everything. And all of a sudden, that industry went to hell in a handbasket. So you got these guys that spent 5 years in engineering school and chemistry and everything, and they had these big $300,000 jobs. You ought to see up on the hill the big mansions that were built during that time, and they were going for, there's still a lot of rich people there, but not as many. And some of the houses went vacant or picked up for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
But the simple fact is, what happened to those people? If they didn't get a job somewhere else, Well, their knowledge turned into the drug industry.
Yeah.
And at one time, they became the meth capital of the world because these guys that were cooking up all these things and these pesticides.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta feed my family somehow. So that's happening in America. We're taking jobs that we normally wouldn't take, or doing things we normally wouldn't do, because this economy is being destroyed and things are shifting in a way that they shouldn't be doing. Yeah, we got to move forward, but this is not. Joe hasn't done anything for us. I went a long way around just to say Joe has screwed things up, whether you want to believe it or not. And all they've done is just put some icing on top of this.
You can't. It was the saying: you can't put lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig.
It's nothing good that's going on right now.
Yep. He does things that just drive you nuts. For example, I think I even mentioned this yesterday, but if I didn't, I'm going to mention it now. On the second floor of the White House, they hung 3 flags. On the left was a U.S. flag. In the center was a pride flag, and on the right was a U.S. flag. And that violates the law, because never should the U.S. flag be held in a subordinate position to another flag on government buildings. It's not supposed to be the way it is. As a matter of fact, by the way, the pride flag isn't even really a flag of a nation. It's not even a recognized flag. But there it was, hanging over the balcony of the White House, and it was there for the world to see. We were saluting. By the way, we have had ads recently. Have you seen them? There are ads for the military where they have pride flags, and they have the soldiers saluting the pride flag.
You have the Ukrainian flag flying in equal stature to the U.S. flag. I got no problem that you support the Ukraine and you fly their flag in solidarity and support. But the point is, it does not go equal to or above our flag.
Right.
You can fly any flag you want to, recognized or not, in this country. You have that right. But when you take the U.S. and it becomes secondary,
right,
then we've got a problem. You've got a problem. So yeah, this is
during the ceremony yesterday in the White House. Biden goes out there in front of the group of people. Most of them were, I guess, representative of the Pride community. And he said this.
We all talk about courage. Well, I see more courage in this lawn than I've seen at any time in the recent past.
Did you hear that? He goes out in front of the Pride community at the White House, the guests, and says, we all talk about courage. Well, I've seen more courage here than I've seen in a long time. Mind you, under his watch, 13 U.S. soldiers were killed in Afghanistan, and their families had to endure the suffering and pain of a president who really could give a rat's, patootie. When they came to Dover in caskets, Biden was the guy and the only guy who was looking down at his watch like he had something better to do,
Biden was a racist early on. That's number one. So anytime he talks about Black Lives Matter and everything, he's a hypocrite. He was, as I recall, he was homophobic too.
Oh, yeah.
And now he's honoring the gay community.
Yeah.
And, I got no problems against the gay community. I think if you truly believe that of yourself, you are brave to come out. So I'll give you that. But here's what I'm saying about Joe. My point is, he's done a complete 180.
Oh, sure.
And any Democrat lawyer will tell you, once a racist, always a racist.
Who is his,
once a homophobe, always a homophobe. Who's got something on Joe? Is he, we talk about all the men. Does somebody have something in the deep state on him to where he's come to their side and now he's there?
Robert Byrd, former senator, was a a member of the Ku Klux Klan. That's documented. At his funeral, I believe, I know that Joe Biden gave a eulogy, some comments. I think Hillary spoke too. But he talked about Robert Byrd as being his close personal friend and mentor, and he was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. And again, he said this yesterday.
We all talk about courage. Well, I see more courage in this lawn than I've seen in any time in the recent past.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
This guy is such a fraud. Bill, under his administration, they have done their utmost to divide our country at every turn, to separate us, to keep us apart, not bring us together as a people, not to say there's the gay community, there's the straight community. They've done everything to put a wedge between these different groups. Oh, this is a community that is to be admired, and these people, the MAGA people, oh, they're terrorists. Did you know they're terrorists? Because they support Trump, and they support, oh my God, conservatism. I mean, these people have done everything under Biden's administration to destroy our nation, besides the fact that they've allowed millions of strangers to cross the border. And by the way, it drove the left nuts, when President Trump said over the weekend at his speeches that he was going to get the local law enforcements together, and they were going to round up all of these people who are here illegally, and it's going to be the largest mass deportation in the history of our country. That happened, by the way, during the Eisenhower administration. Eisenhower was big at deporting a lot of people who came across illegally.
Look, this whole thing against Trump could go away, but I think there's a bounty on his head. But let's say it goes away, or it stays here, and he's elected president. Now here comes the bad news, because I've heard it, so surely you've heard it. If not, then I'm going to tell you right now. The left has already said if by chance Trump wins, we're already, just like they did in 2017, they're going to impeach. And part of the reason for these charges right now, it's not so much that he gets convicted of it, but that it sticks in your mind, and they'll say, this guy does not have the right to be president, and they don't care. They will impeach for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. They do not want him in power because of what he can do to them.
That's true. As a matter, it's a vicious circle. Now, the only way that could not happen is if the Republicans keep control of the House. But, historically, when you have a Republican president, you have a Democratic Congress. I mean, it's the way it's been going back and forth for decades, and it's probably going to happen again. If we get a Democratic Congress again, like Bill said, the first thing they'll do is they'll impeach him. I don't know how President Trump can fix this country like he's talking about, fixing the deep state, without a major, some kind of major event that gives him the authority to do this. Some people think that major event would be the military intervening. And that may be a possibility. I don't know. That's way beyond my pay grade. But a lot of people believe that that's imminent, that's probably going to happen in the not too distant future. Some people believe, I'm just throwing these things out because we're in that area. Mm-hmm. Some people believe that that President Trump never wasn't the president, that he actually won. The military has that information, but they have let this ruse continue. For example, I saw something interesting just yesterday. He was up at a restaurant. I guess it was in New Jersey. He stopped into a restaurant, and some lady actually came up to him and said that she made her Donald Trump's, I think, mother's meatloaf recipe. Listen.
Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Trump, we made your mother's meatloaf for you.
Oh, I like that.
Can you take it on the plane? If you want
Yeah, bring that on the plane.
From Ruth Ann's Restaurant.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Say it again. What's the name?
Ruth Ann's Restaurant, right down here on Restaurant.
I'll bet it's good.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Earlier. It's going to get very crowded now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
You know, this is why the people love him. The guy goes out there, he goes into a crowd of people. The guy's worth $10 billion. This lady walks up to him and says, I made your grandmother's meatloaf that you love. I made it for you. Can you take it on the plane? And he says, yeah, I'll take it on the plane. We'll take this on the plane, he says to one of his aides. And then he says, the plane is going to get very crowded, very busy because a lot of people are going to want that meatloaf. He was relating to this little lady in the crowd, and she loved him. And I would submit, Bill, that not too many other candidates on that platform, who are running, have that kind of charm.
Well, I was just going to say, when he was young, people liked him. He was, he was the in vogue guy, but he was a nice guy. Yeah, he was shrewd in business, but he was a nice guy. And I've always been a believer that a person, they're good from the beginning. Somewhere, somehow they're good, and they grow and mature into the person that they are. And when you hear him and see him and the things that he does and the people that have been around him, he's really a kind, gentle person.
He is.
Just like that. He likes people. You look at Joe. Now, if you go back to when he first ran for president in the 80s and he lied this and lied that and he was a fast talker and everything, and you go, wait a minute, how did Stuttering Joe do that back then? And then, his whole campaign, his whole life has been a lie. He says he's not a racist, but yet he was anti-school busing. Even Kamala called him out on it, but she danced in order to the party because people they're party ticks. Here, we're human ticks. That doesn't sound right, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Humanistic. But Joe has grown into an evil old man because he started out that way.
Yeah.
And you grow into what you are to begin with.
The only difference between Joe Biden of today and the Joe Biden of 30 or 40 years ago is he's gotten older. It's the same guy. It's the same double-talking liar from 1980 today, except he's older and had more plastic surgery done. But I wanted to go back to the point I was making about he was up in this restaurant, and he's surrounded by all these people, and the lady brings him the meatloaf, and he's very comfortable with her. But what people didn't see, and you have to see the picture to really get this, is someone pointed out that if you look over the president's shoulder, out the picture window into the street, you will see it looked like a special forces operative with full body armor and his automatic rifle. Not a Secret Service agent. Most Secret Service agents carry their little automatic weapon underneath their coats. This was a guy who looked like he looked like a SWAT guy, and he was dressed to kill, literally. And someone said, this is not how just another candidate would have protection, or even a former president. Apparently, President Trump's protection right now is above and beyond the call of duty. The guy who was making the point, who pointed it out, it looked like he has the detail of a president, an active president. And so it goes back to what we were talking about. There are some people believe that President Trump, he got the votes, and the people in the know he got it. But they want to let certain things play out so the world can see just how corrupt the deep state really is. See, it's like saying we're going to let them think they won. We're going to give them all the authority to do the things that will, be obviously corrupt. The country will see it because they've been asleep. They've been asleep, not paying attention. They'll see the corruption and they'll realize why there has to be a change.
I'm sitting here thinking, you got the deep state and they've got money beyond belief. And the RNC, I'm trying not to sneeze again. I always get this thing at this time in the morning, I have something in the air. But you see the RNC taking the money and spreading it around. They don't even spend it on all their candidates, let alone Trump. And then you got to wonder, with all the attacks and everything, Trump is a rich man, but nobody's got that much money. And it got me to thinking, if there is a deep left state, is there a right state that is out there It's kind of like a Marvel movie.
You mean doing good?
Joes. There are the good soldiers out there, and there's money that is.
Well, that's
on
what a
the
lot of
good
people
side, too.
believe. A lot of people believe there is the white hats, as they call them. You know, they're out there fighting this force of evil. I mean, you know, we see it, like you say, in comic books. You know, there's this villain, and he wants the destruction of the world, and there's this hero, and he wants to save the world. You got to wonder sometimes, are they just are they more factual in some ways? I don't mean that we have super heroes with superpowers, but are there two factions out there, like you said, a good faction and an evil faction?
Go back in history. Look at the Pope and his the Knights Templar.
Right.
You know, and what were the Knights Templar? And Mason. They were the Pope's army.
Right.
And they had now, the powers that be decided to take him down.
Yeah, the French king.
Yeah,
the French king decided, I'm not going to pay up. The king of France, France was in deep debt, and
he's not going to pay his debt.
He said, "I'm not going to pay my debt." How did he convince the Pope that he could get the money from the Templars? The Templars were very wealthy. He was going to get the money from them to pay the Pope back if the Pope at the time were to make the Templars into bad guys. The Pope, people have to remember where there are human beings involved, there's always the option for corruption.
There's good and evil everywhere, And you take the Templar thing. That's why the Oak Island series, because all the gold, all the queens and different monarchs, everything out there, including the Holy Grail.
Yeah,
believe it or not. So, there could be a good force, and a good force out there is not going to say, "Hey, here we are. We're the good guys." They're going to be hiding. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true. But, if you want to delve into there's got to be good guys, well, there could be. Just who they are, I don't know. And I got to believe that there's a higher power, because there is, Trump, he seems to be able to weather a big barrage of a financial storm that they're bringing on. They're trying everything. And, I pray that he keeps going.
A normal man couldn't defend himself against this financially. I mean, even if you had a GoFundMe page that raised $10 million, I'll bet you Trump has already spent way beyond that.
If you did the accounting, he's got to be in the billions.
Has to be.
I would think.
Yeah. Well, all I can tell you is today's going to be an interesting day. Now, Dan Bongino's concerned about today for his physical safety.
I've said this for months, that they've got a target, and I don't think that the target's been ever more clear. You can probably watch him walking and see the dot on his head.
My wife said, "How far can a sniper shoot from?" I said, "Well, there are some snipers that can hit you from a mile away with the right weapon and the right."
They can do better than that.
I mean, that's a long way off. How do you defend yourself against that? You drive into the basement garage. And they probably have a basement garage in that courthouse, I would think.
Well, they probably do, but everywhere that's secure, there is somebody that can be put in place to make it unsecure. You don't know. See, Trump doesn't know. Everybody that he sees for the first time, if they're good or bad. He's got to go on faith that he's got enough support there to spot him and nullify him.
It's going to be a busy day. The media, I'm sure, has that place covered right now. There are probably camera trucks all over the place. Everybody jockeying for the best location for their cameras. You have got Secret Service people setting up different vantage points to protect the former president. I don't know how they're going to do it. I do not know how they're going to do it. I remember. I'm from the generation who remembers President Kennedy driving through Dealey Plaza, and everyone thought, oh, he's fine. We can put him in an open car. Everyone loves him in Dallas. As a matter of fact, John Connally had just turned around and said, "Mr. President, they love you." And the president shook his head like, yeah, he sees this. And a second later, there was the bullet that took off the back of his head. And now they're saying...
that was all a setup.
Well, now they're saying that was... a lot of people believe it was the Central Intelligence Agency that did it.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I to say? A lot of people are saying that. It's not what people were told. It was too much of a convenient package looking back. They literally wrapped up the entire investigation in one weekend. We had the president shot. We had Lee Harvey Oswald arrested, and a few hours later in the theater, we had him brought into the cell, and all the cameras were there. We had Jack Ruby, who conveniently was able to, with weapon, walk into the parking garage, the Dallas parking garage. They apparently knew Jack Ruby. He walked right in, and when they were bringing out Lee Harvey Oswald, it couldn't have been a cleaner shot. He just leaned in with his revolver and fired off a couple of rounds and killed Lee Harvey Oswald. Not instantly. He died in the hospital, but the damage was done. And that was it. It was like, well, American can go back to work. We've got that whole thing solved and life is good. It was Lee Harvey Oswald. He was in the school book depository, and that's that.
Well, back then, all you had to trust were, 3 networks?
Yep.
ABC, NBC, and CBS.
That's right.
That's all you had. You didn't have UPN, the CW.
No.
You didn't have the internet back then.
No cable
You didn't have
TV.
cable, no independent news sources, nothing but that machine.
Yes.
And even then,
you had when Walter Cronkite would literally take off his glasses and look at the camera and with a tear in his eye announced that the president of the United States died in Dallas today. And it was the entire effect was there. He just, Walter Cronkite became the biggest journalist in the world that day. That was it. Up until that day, he was one of many journalists. He was Walter Cronkite and a lot of Huntley and Brinkley. But on that day, when Walter Cronkite took off his glasses and had a tear in his eye and made that announcement, it was something special. And you can see it from that point on, how they promoted him and how he became the lead anchor and how he became the force in media. We, at least when I was at CBS, they used to call him Uncle Wally.
But he was a leftist. He did not.
Oh, absolutely.
And that was his way at the end of the newscast. I think we've mentioned this before.
That's the way it is.
And that's the way it is.
This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News. Good night.
Good night.
Yes.
But him saying that's the way it is, like it or not.
That's exactly right. This is it.
And that's the news, like it
or not.
Good night.
Yes. He was the leading force behind CBS. CBS was the number one network for news, and the whole country believed everything he said, pure and simple. If Walter said the sky is purple, then everyone believed the sky was purple, even if it was a nice blue. Everybody just trusted him for his honesty. And like Bill said, we didn't find out till later on in his life that he was a screaming leftist. He pretended on television to be neutral.
Yeah, I had
now
one
they
of
don't.
those that worked for me one time. A news lady that was totally left on a conservative right show, but she did her job when she worked for me, so that was fine. She would sit there and come into the office and cuss at the end of the show about it was Quinn in the morning. Some people might know who he is, some don't, but Either way, he was and he was an old buddy of Rush Limbaugh because they were rock and roll disc jockeys together. So that was their.
Rush was nice guy. Rush was a nice guy. He was different in person than he was on the microphone. On the microphone, he had this presence of being boisterous and a talent on loan from God. And when I did meet him, and when I met him, he was a kind of a gentle soul, if you know what I mean.
Very humble person.
He was. I wanted to play something today, stepping aside a bit. Daniel Perry is the former Marine. I guess there is no such thing as a former Marine. He's a retired Marine, but he's the gentleman who was on the subway, the young, handsome young guy who, when that guy came in, Neely, and caused trouble on the subway, he literally subdued him, put him in a chokehold, and ultimately Neely died. Of course, they blamed the Marine, and he's been quiet. He hasn't defended himself until yesterday. He released a videotape. I guess his attorneys released an interview with him. It's about 3 minutes long. This is Daniel Penny. He's the young Marine who literally, I think, came to the rescue of a lot of the people on that subway train. Listen.
East Village in Manhattan, so I take the subway multiple times a day. In this instance, I was coming from school. I got out of class around 2:15, and I took I was at J Street Metro Tech, took the Uptown F train. At 2nd Avenue, a man came on, stumbled on. He appeared to be on drugs. The doors closed, and he ripped his jacket off and threw it at the people sitting down to my left. I was listening to music at the time, and he was yelling, so I took my headphones out to hear what he was yelling. And the 3 main threats that he repeated over and over was, "I'm going to kill you, I'm prepared to go to jail for life, and I'm willing to die." This was a scary situation, and Mr. Neely came on. He was threatening. I'm 6'2", and he was taller than me, so it was. And there's a common misconception that Marines don't get scared. We're actually taught one of our core values is courage, and courage is not the absence of fear, but how you handle fear. And I was scared for myself, but I looked around, I saw women and children. He was yelling in their faces, saying these threats. I couldn't just sit still. Some people say that I was holding on to Mr. Neely for 15 minutes. This is not true. I mean, between stops is only a couple minutes. So the whole interaction lasted less than 5 minutes. Some people say I was trying to choke him to death, which is also not true. I was trying to restrain him. You can see in the video, there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he's breathing. I'm trying to restrain him from him being able to carry out the threats. And then some people say that this was about race, which is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. I saw a man threatening passengers, a lot of whom were people of color. The man who helped restrain Mr. Neely was a person of color. A few days after the incident, I read in the papers that a woman of color came out and called me a hero. I don't believe that I'm a hero, but she was one of those people that I was trying to protect. We were all scared. Mr. Neely was yelling in these passengers' faces, and they looked terrified. The reason why there was no video at the start of the altercation was because people were too afraid getting away from him, and the videos didn't start until they saw that situation was under control. I knew I had to act, and I acted in a way that would protect the other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I used this hold to restrain him, and I did this by leaving my hand on top of his head to control his body. You can see in the video there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he was still breathing. And I'm calibrating my grip based on the force that he's exerting. And I was trying to keep him on the ground until the police came. I was praying that the police would come and take this situation over. I didn't want to be put in that situation, but I couldn't just sit still and let him carry out these threats.
That's Daniel Penny. He's the Marine who subdued that Neely character. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether you've ever been on a subway train in New York. I have many times. But, you're in kind of a funny situation when you're between stations. You literally get on the train with a bunch of strangers, the doors close behind you, and then for the distance between station to station, you're kind of a captive. And whoever's in there, good or bad, you're at their mercy, especially if you're kind of a good person minding your own business. And I think that's the situation that Penny found himself in. He had no choice other than to try to stop this guy from doing something bad to somebody. He said there were a lot of women in there with their kids, and they looked afraid. And it was almost as if Penny was saying, I had no option. And I also can't help but think that 20 years ago, in a normal world like I grew up in, he would have been given the keys to the city for protecting the people on that train. But instead, we live in a topsy-turvy world where the people in charge of the governments of these cities, they're more concerned with the criminal than they are the victim. The victim is the one who should be making the sacrifices, and the criminal should be the one who's given deference. It's mind blowing. For him to be in this situation, Bill, is beyond me.
Well, Neely said, according to him, is that I'm going to kill you. I may go to jail. I'm going to go to jail. He didn't say I may. He goes, I'm going to kill you.
Right.
I'm going to go to jail for this, and I'm not afraid
to die.
Those are the words of a person that has got some kind of psychological thing going on, or they've been brainwashed.
Right.
They're not free thinking at that point. So this guy was on a mission and not one of his own normal volition. It was something that he was coerced into doing, through whatever source.
Right. Absolutely. And this guy, Daniel Penny, was doing the right thing. He was trying to help people. Yeah, Daniel Penny didn't get on the train with the thought he was going to get into a fight or cause a problem. Daniel Penny was minding his own business. He was a student. He had movie star looks. He looked like a young guy who could be in Hollywood. He has a perfect physique, former Marine. He was doing all the right things. He looked like the kind of guy you'd like to have over for dinner at your house, right? The other guy was in there causing a problem, but that the Al Sharpton and I think a couple of representatives showed up at this guy Neely's funeral like he was a diplomat, like it was a diplomatic funeral. The funeral for this guy Neely was an event that Al Sharpton and his cronies had to be there. What a lot of nonsense. We have got to wake up, America, because there's no coming back from this unless something happens. We have got to wake up. We've got to say enough is enough. Stop paying attention to our football games and baseball games. Start paying attention to what's happening to our country because it's going down the tubes right in front of your eyes. While you're sitting around, other people are sitting around doing nothing to stop it, it's being destroyed by a bunch of people who don't love this country.
This is a situation where Al Sharpton being there and all these people there, they want to make it a white against black scenario. They don't care that the black guy in this case was the bad guy. It could have been the other way around. Now, if it was the other way around, would they have shown up for the white guy to say,
no,
terrible?
No.
And would anybody white sit there and come out and say, oh, this is
terrible? They call guys like Sharpton race-baiting pimps. They spend their whole life trying to make money off of these divisive situations.
Right. They do, and that's what it's all about. They're trying to drive racism. And, of course, they're seated on the left, which has always been about race. If you go back and look at history, you'll be going, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
It is true. But you got to do the research. And I'm not saying there aren't racists out there in the Republican side. There are. But let's be honest here. Your party is trying to drive that bus right through the middle of the heart of our democracy.
What was the party of slavery? The party of slavery was
Democrats.
the Democratic Party, period. End, stop, that's it. They were the party of slavery. If you don't believe it, find a history book somewhere and open it up, because it'll tell you the South was all Democratic, and they were fighting for slavery.
That's true.
Anyway, and by the way, the guy who was responsible for the Emancipation Proclamation and the freedom was a Republican. But I'm just saying, they're not all perfect. Like Bill said, a lot of Republicans are just as bad as the Democrats.
A lot of things have changed over time, but you got a deep state now that's driving the bus, and, that bus stops on both sides of the fence.
We've done it again, my friend.
Time?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so we talked a little bit too much, but hey, that's just the way it goes. We could talk forever.
Today's going to be an interesting day because I think it's the turning point in our democracy as to what happens today and the days to come. Could be the nail in the coffin or the opening of a door that we right this train. I hope
Say
we
a
right
prayer
the train.
for the safety of the former president. Say a prayer for everybody's safety down there, too. We don't want anybody to be hurt. No violence. If you see troublemakers down there, I would bet you $1,000 those troublemakers will be the left in disguise.
Yeah, but we're missing the big story today. It's not down there in Florida.
Okay.
Apparently it's in Washington, D.C., because apparently Joe Biden has got to go in for a root canal today.
No, he had it yesterday, Bill. That was yesterday.
Oh, he had it yesterday?
Yes.
I had it for today. So he had it yesterday.
Yes, he did.
So he's on his antibiotics.
Yes,
today.
he was a little down in the mouth. So
I wish he'd be permanently down in the mouth.
Actually, Carmela had to go do some public appearances for him yesterday afternoon because of his root canal. But he had that done.
So he got the work done on his root canal. That's great. I hope, it's too bad it wasn't on his wisdom tooth. They might have found
they would have done it on his wisdom tooth. They couldn't find one because there's no wisdom.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, listen, we're done. You have a wonderful day, my friend. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
No vaya con Dios?
Adios, amigo.
The voice of freedom. CRN America. These days, when you want an answer about just about anything, you ask Alexa. You ask her about the weather. You ask her who won your favorite sporting event. You ask her to find a fact that you can't find anywhere. Well, we did that too. We asked her how many people have downloaded it'sanotherday.com. And this is what she said.
From acceleration.com. It has been downloaded as much as 260,433,467 times.
I know. Seems like a lot. Seems like a lot to us, too. But it's Alexa. Thanks for making us a part of your day. And tell your friends about it'sanotherday.com. We could use an extra listener. I mean, what do you do when you only have 260 million?